I want to break the stereotype. Is it possible for a leader to be racialized, to be Black? Is it possible?
What would be your advice to any Black entrepreneur in today's environment to build a profitable venture?
It's very, very important to remember that network principle. So one big word of advice is do not do this on your own.
Hello and welcome to the Leaders and Strategists podcast. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hot topic currently in our society, especially in education, where the next generation of leaders is trained. That's why we want to engage with Dr. Yolande Chan, the current Dean of McGill Desautels Faculty of Management. In spite of her very busy schedule, she has graciously invited us over to her office to start the conversation. Thank you, Yolande, for having us today in your office at McGill Desautels. We are shooting this conversation for Leaders and Strategists, a podcast which is basically investigating Black entrepreneurship and how to promote excellence in general environment. And today I really like to have this very simple conversation about yourself because your career is a great inspiration for me. And how do you feel today?
Oh, I feel very honored to be being interviewed and also very hopeful. I really want my life to impact others, and you're giving me an opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So you were born in Kingston, Jamaica.
That's right.
And you spent an extensive period of your life in Kingston, Ontario. Was it by choice? Is there any play or particular reason why you decided to start at Kingston?
Well, I've often said that life has a funny way of working out. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I would go for so many years of my life from one Kingston to another and now beyond. Mm-hmm. But it really made a lot of sense to me. And there were some similarities across those two Kingstons. So Kingston, Jamaica, the capital of a small island, one I love dearly. Kingston, do you know Kingston was the first capital of Canada?
Oh, I didn't know
that. It actually
that.
was.
Okay.
And but very small, still small to this day. And now here I am in wonderful, large Montreal.
Yeah, and exactly, that's a very great transition to my next question, which is, can you walk us through the path from that Kingston, Jamaica, and up to Kingston, Ontario, and now here at Montreal Desautels? What were the key milestones that you have experienced so far?
Thank you. That's a great question. So I was really, really fortunate to be born into an amazing family, and I have never really been able to express my gratitude for the start I have had, especially as I've learned about the lives of so many people and the challenges that they have overcome in their families. I was given a wonderful family. My parents were very, very bright. My mother won an island-wide scholarship, and my father won a scholarship at what we would call the provincial level, like the top students. So my mother in her year was the top student in her island, in the island, and my dad the top student in his, let's call it, province.
Okay.
And so I was born with things lined up in my favor. They were very, very caring, and my mother sacrificed her career. They both wanted to be lawyers. My father continued in his career as a lawyer and excelled, and my mother gave hers up in order to look after her children. And we had a family that believed in the value of education. It's not surprising that I'm an academic. All four children had or have PhDs.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, I say I'm the least qualified of my siblings because I I have only one PhD. They have a PhD and a professional degree, like they're an MD or they have they're a lawyer or a vet.
Okay.
I'm just a PhD.
Wow.
So with a very strong start, won a scholarship at the end of my high school years. Actually won several, but there were multiple scholarships in the U.S., Harvard, MIT, Cornell, and other universities, and I went to MIT.
Why? Was
Why
there
did I?
specific?
Yes.
Yeah, because you have so many choices.
Yes. Why did I go to MIT?
Yeah.
So my life was shaped by Roman Catholics in Jamaica.
Okay.
I went to Catholic prep school and then Catholic high school, and the headmistress of the Catholic high school, Sister Maureen Clare Hall, became a mentor for me.
Okay.
And when I was faced with a choice of, I think it was 5 scholarships and opportunities in the U.S., I went to her, and it was Sister Maureen Clare Hall who said, well, I think you've got Harvard and MIT. Those are the 2 I suggest. And she gave MIT the edge because she saw that it had a lot of opportunity for someone like myself who was very strong in maths. And actually, I went to MIT and specialized initially in maths, switched quickly to engineering and computer science, but started in maths. And she was right. There was a very, very good fit. So that's how I ended up there. And it's been, for me, quite the experience. I had a 4-year scholarship, and I noticed that in my year 3 that I was pretty much done. Like I was, most of the requirements I had managed to complete, and I realized I had another year plus of scholarship. So I spoke with the equivalent of our BCom program director and said, I'm actually funded to be here for a full year plus, and I'm almost done. Can I move into the master's program?
Oh, wow.
And he said yes. So I, in the 4-year window, completed the 2 degrees. I completed my 4-year undergrad and my 2-year master's. And so at the end of the 4 years, I had two MIT degrees and was fortunate to win the Rhodes Scholarship. That's a story in itself. My father reached out to me in my final year and said, do you know that the Rhodes competition is on again? I'd like you to apply. I think you could do well. And really just because I so respected my father. My parents have my undying respect. They're both unfortunately deceased. But I so respect my family. I listened to him and I applied. Now I was interviewed, didn't think anything of it, went on my way, and then got the call and the communication one day that I'd won the Rhodes Scholarship. And my reaction was to burst into tears and to say, oh no!
Why?
because I was pretty exhausted. I had really worked hard. And I was ready to go back to Jamaica, and the Rhodes would take me, as it did take me, to England. So I worked through that summer, had a couple of weeks back in Jamaica, and then went to the UK. So there was no break. And I say there's no rest for the wicked, although I don't know what I've done, but I certainly have worked hard all my life.
No, I think it's more like hard work, score more hard work. So yeah.
Yes. So I went to the UK, met my husband, who's a Rhodes Scholar.
Oh, that's fine.
We got married in England. My first house was in England, our first home. And my husband, he's Chinese Guyanese. He was coming to Toronto to do his residency. So, of course, I joined him. And I worked with Accenture while he did his studies as a resident, a medical resident. And then we switched the focus to be on me because I had wanted to do 2 things. One was potentially a PhD, but also he and I both wanted a family.
Okay.
And with Accenture, I was traveling so much, neither of us could see how I could parent a child. I was gone more often than I was present. So we thought about where he could go to work. He was licensed to practice in Ontario.
Okay.
That limited my
Area.
university pool to Ontario, and I reached out, applied to Western, and that's where I went.
Okay.
Did the PhD, and from there, Michael and I, my husband and I, wanted to find a city where we could both work and raise children. And so that was Kingston, because it allowed him, it has so many hospitals, and it has Queen's University. So there we went, and there we lived for many, 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 many years. I raised two beautiful sons who I am very, very proud of also. But that took me to Kingston.
Yeah.
And there I became, at first an assistant, but then, of course, associate and then full professor. I was always, unfortunately, either the only Black professor or one of two at the most Black professors in the School of Business there. I also was, throughout my career, now of course there are many full professors who are Black, but while I was there, I was the most senior, to my knowledge, Black professor. And it was an opportunity for me to play many leadership roles. I had a very good experience at the university, largely because I was able to pour my life into others and to help others to see their potential and to achieve it. So after several administrative roles at the school, and then centrally at the university, I was Associate Vice Principal Research, Associate Dean Research. I directed the PhD program, directed research centers, etc. After all of that, I'd pretty much given everything I could. I was very connected. I had the opportunity to come to McGill. It was the only call in all my decades, only recruiting call I ever said yes to. I never, even though at points there were several opportunities, this was the only one that I did pursue, and here I am at McGill in Montreal, a new community, but with an opportunity to have not just local and national impact. McGill is very international. It's increased the opportunity I have to make my life count. So I'm very pleased.
Congratulations on that.
Merci. Thank you.
And there are so many things that I would like to unpack. For example, the fact that you started in maths, and then and something that resonated with me, because I also have a degree in maths, and then you switch to consulting, and I did consulting as well, and then you switch into academia.
Yes.
Why academia in particular? Because most people don't actually wake up or grew up thinking I will be a professor. I will be doing like management specifically. Why did you decide to go into that direction? Okay,
so if I could quickly just talk about all three transition periods. At MIT, at least then, they required that you did what they called Core 6 courses, so that's electrical engineering. And so it was a requirement. So it was an application of the maths, and I was delighted, and I loved it. So once I had been forced to try it, I realized this was a great fit. So that change was made. I went into management from computing science and electrical engineering because of the experience I had at Lincoln Lab. So MIT has a lab where it's actually Department of Defense lab where many students like myself worked in the summers, and my office mate was very highly regarded, was actually the most highly regarded of all the graduate students. But he was very eccentric. He never left the office. He slept in the office. He had a cot in the office.
Oh, wow.
And I would have to go in like this, like holding my nose and saying, oh my God, help me. So I felt strongly that if that was the ideal for the track I was on, I didn't fit that track. So I jumped away from engineering and computer science and used the Rhodes Scholarship to go into management. You asked why consulting?
Yep.
Well, given my background, which was very technical, and my management focus, I thought a perfect way of combining the two was the management of technology.
Okay.
And advising others about how to manage technology was the way forward. So that's what Accenture does, and I was delighted to have that opportunity.
Okay. And still in your research, you are still doing management of technology.
That's correct.
Can you talk a little bit more about your research? Like you studied things like business IT alignment,
Yes.
SMAC, social media, mobile analytics, and cloud computing. And especially you have this very interesting way or perspective on it, which is how those elements can actually improve and help entrepreneurs succeed. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So let's talk about IT alignment. My signature research as an academic is that. And what do I mean by alignment? It's the link or the congruence, the fit between what the business is doing, its strategies, and what the technology is being used for.
Okay.
So it can be going this way or it can be going this way. If you are using your technology to meet your strategic goals, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. And so my research was focused on developing tools to measure the gap and also processes to reduce the gap so that there would be more output, more financial value and benefit from investments in technology. So that's been my career. More recently, though, I did move into digital innovation and also digital strategy.
Okay.
And that's where digital entrepreneurship became a big focus of my work. And technology is often neglected by entrepreneurs. They see themselves as just hustling, just surviving, and technology that's who's going to stop to invest. The work that I have done on SMAC, it's as you said, these are readily available technologies: social media, mobile technologies, analytics and cloud. Almost every company, almost every person has access to these. For me, it was a game changer for the entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs often fail because they don't have resources, they don't have funds. And I felt very strongly that they were overlooking the jewels right there, just at their fingertips. And so my research was showing how small, simple investments in free technology could be used by entrepreneurs to appear much bigger than they are, to get information about competitors, just using social media, for instance, to be mobile. You don't have to actually physically be all over the world. You can just be in your room and be all over the world, etc. So it was a way of revisioning, of reimagining your business using free technology and winning. So I've done a fair bit of work on how free and readily available technologies, can be used to build new ventures and to accelerate their growth. And with the alignment, I think it's also linked to my priorities. So the SMAC is linked to making accessible, giving opportunities to the disadvantaged in some ways, those being startups. With the IT alignment, it's somewhat similar to my core values, which are being your authentic self. So knowing who you are as a company, just like you and I know who we are as individuals, is key. And then you use the technology to realize who you are. And so that purpose, that clear vision about what your business is, what this university is, what this faculty is, a vision, a strategy, and then you line up the resources and you leverage them for maximum impact. So those are the two areas of research which are aligned with my values and priorities.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. And I also know that you are quite involved in supporting startups and
Yes.
some ecosystem for entrepreneurs. And in particular, we attended an event in Kingston
Yes.
about some months ago
Yes.
from the Black entrepreneur ecosystem from southeastern
Yes.
Ontario.
Yes.
What do you think is your input, or how do you value that involvement in those type of organization, and what do you do with them actually on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. Okay. So I think as an individual, you can only get so far. Networks allow you to get to the next level.
Okay.
And my involvement in entrepreneurial hub, so I'm involved in a women's entrepreneurial hub that's out of the Toronto area, and I'm involved in the Black Entrepreneurship Network that you saw that's involved out of Kingston. So one is focused on assisting women entrepreneurs,
Okay.
another is focused on assisting Black entrepreneurs. And I think that ecosystems allow for the alignment of opportunities and individuals who can seize those opportunities, because you're not alone. So by not just working with a single new venture, but ensuring that that new venture is surrounded by a supportive environment, which could be an incubator or multiple incubators. It could be mentors, coaches, loans. It could be, so financial assistance. It could be actually even members of your family and friend networks that you teach how they can come in alongside an entrepreneur and help the entrepreneur. As you're part of a bigger whole, the likelihood of your success increases.
Okay.
And for me, I know that, there's a saying, your life is just the dash between two dates.
Okay.
If you think of a tombstone, you have the date you're born, date you exit. There's a dash. I want my dash to have maximum impact.
Okay.
So by working with systems and not just individual firms, by using my research to assist whole ecosystems, I know I'm having a bigger impact, and I know that they also will have a better outcome. So we've looked at technology use in ecosystems, technology use in incubators, and so forth. I did at the previous university also have oversight. I was Associate Vice Principal Research with a focus at one point on their innovation park. So I was tasked with looking at the effectiveness of their ecosystem and the incubation and tech transfer. So I have a little bit of administrative experience in that area, as well as a research interest.
Okay. And can you share with us maybe one success story of a startup that you coach or you have seen growing up and be successful?
I have assisted a startup in Kingston, Ontario, where the individual involved, a Black woman, has had challenges both getting finance to expand her business, which is to sell it's actually beauty products for Black women. And what I've done in that case is ensure that she was plugged in to the Kingston ecosystem, then ensured that she had a couple of opportunities for grants and funding, then also ensured she had some coaching and assisted with marketing. We had some students from the school where I was previously who volunteered some time. They were in entrepreneurship classes and they took on projects, and I ensured that she was one of the recipients of student input and reports. And we have taken her from soup to nuts, as they say. And it's good. Today she has sales on various web platforms, including, well, most commonly you would know Amazon, but others. So it's been wonderful to see an individual start with an idea and end up with a business.
Great. Congratulations once again. And both as a researcher and as a dean, you have extensively advocated for EDI, for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Can you tell us more about that, and why is it so dear to your art?
Yes. So I grew up, as I said, in Jamaica, and in all honesty, it wasn't even on my radar. I was not in the minority. I looked around, everybody pretty much looked like me. We are, my husband says we are cook-up rice. Everything is thrown into the pot.
Okay.
And we get along well. There are many races. I grew up with all different races around me. There was never an issue. And so my race wasn't even on my radar. That changed when I went to the States.
Okay.
I will never forget at MIT having a horrible experience of going into a poor part of Boston with a group of people. And on my way from the subway to that venue, I realized that we were being followed, and then they were calling me out. They were singling me out. And everyone had to close around me. And all of a sudden I realized I'm different. I'd never really realized that before. It was a crisis moment in some ways. We got to the venue, and then the crowd started stoning the building.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that the glass would break, and we actually had to wait several hours until we were sure that that everyone had gone. And then I was shepherded back to the subway with great, not fear, but
discomfort. Yeah.
yes, a real alarm. And I had never, ever, even with the gender issue, I mean, at MIT, I was one woman. I think there were like 3 or 4 of us in a sea of males. Remember, it was STEM, so engineering and women, and, you know, it was a while ago. So, but I that had some disadvantage, you know, availability of study groups if you're studying all night and things like that. But I'd never experienced something that was a threat to me, my very existence. And I think I spent the next several decades just being shocked when it would rear its head, because I didn't see myself as being different.
Yeah.
And trying to understand how others viewed me. I think my life has been a journey of learning how others see me. I look out on a world and I don't have, you know, when I look out, if I'm in a room that's monolithic, I don't see that I'm different. When they look at me, they see that I am different. So I've been in meetings with senior administrators where, for instance, there are over 60 administrators, and I am the only Black woman, and maybe one of, I think in one meeting, one of 2, I think it was just 2 Black administrators. So I don't have a challenge when I look out, but when they look at me, they do. So I became aware of being different only after leaving Jamaica. And I realized that it has cost me sometimes. People look at me and think you can't play that role because you have a different look. And I'm like, but I'm more qualified. How can I not play this role? And no, the expectation is that the person in this role has a different look. And I mean, I've had people come to me and say, you can't be the professor. I'm like, I can't be the professor? I am. Seriously, the professor.
I am.
No, you can't be. Or, you know, challenge you. You know, my son, for instance, has been challenged. Can this be your car? Yes, this is his car. You know, and experiences that most wouldn't have, you do have. At the previous university in 2016, I was asked by the principal there to co-lead the review of ethics, diversity, and inclusion at that university. And it was a great privilege for me to do that.
Okay.
And I did it, and it transformed my life. Before then, my research and teaching did not have EDI, but as a component. But when I was able to listen to tens and tens of stories, both students and staff, both administrative and academic staff, something broke inside of me. I felt their pain. And although I had managed to navigate through, I mean, admittedly, perhaps not with the same speed as I could have without certain disadvantages, some had never been able to work their way through the system. And I felt that it was up to me to do the little that I could do to give individuals some of the advantages that they deserved, but that were not available to them, and that in some cases I had the opportunity to provide. And so it changed my whole focus to much more want to assist those who are disadvantaged. And it's not just race, it's gender, it's all kinds of things. It's ability, you know. There, I could just keep going, the list is long. But it's created a real compassion. So if someone is isolated, so let's say it's an Indigenous person, if it's someone who has had some hate mail because of their sexual orientation or something, my heart goes out to them. And I may not be in their shoes, but I want to ensure that they have, as all of us deserve, opportunities to use their gifts and to be assisted and to be taken seriously. So that changed my focus a bit, and so I began to do a lot more mentoring. So I had previously mentored. I've since about 2006 mentored women because I was in computing science and engineering, and my background within management is the management of technology. So I've always been in a primarily male field, even in the management domain. So I started a women's breakfast, or as part of a women's breakfast, I started way back and built an organization which today in the Association for Information Systems is called the Women's Network. And it helps women to find their place in the management of information technology and to shine. But after that 2016 and 17 review, I started to focus on assisting racialized persons primarily, in addition to women. And at one point, I remember someone saying to me, "You're on 30 committees."
Where do you find the energy?
I was thinking, where my research, because I know research is a gate opener for academics, and we must never neglect our research. To this day, I continue to do research, but my heart was just broken. And so those 30 committees and a lot of students and staff that I had the privilege of mentoring, was very, very, very fulfilling for me, but very exhausting. And difficult for your own personal advancement, but there was a deep sense of fulfillment.
As you know, I'm teaching the social context of business class. And in that class, I teach the student about ethics and about EDI. And meanwhile, most of the class is on board with the idea. I have this sense of pushback from some of them saying that EDI is actually the antithesis of meritocracy in a sense. And how do you engage with those type of claims?
EDI. Let me speak to that. And one thing I just realized I didn't mention about my MIT journey. I was MIT's first woman Rhodes Scholar, and I was MIT's first Black Rhodes Scholar. When you keep breaking through, you see personally what not having a leg up can do, because you're having to keep breaking through stereotypes, breaking through where there is no one before you pulling you forward, but you have the privilege of pulling someone behind you. So is it the opposite of meritocracy? I think what EDI does is it recognizes the reality of disadvantage. Individuals can be disadvantaged, such is life. I understand each of us has unique individual disadvantages and advantages, But when whole systems, structures, societies keep down a certain element, then I think it becomes moral. It's a moral issue. And the individual, regardless of the individual's talent, cannot necessarily break through systems and structures. So while I understand that you don't want to create systems of disadvantage for others, there's a recognition that there's such a gap between communities in the larger society that if we don't build bridges for certain communities, they will be disadvantaged forever. And I do agree that there is a sense at times, and I've met individuals who feel threatened by EDI, who say, I do not have an opportunity to do X and Y because I'm the majority, and so now you're ruling me out. No, I don't think that should be the case. What I have in my own personal walk done, my own personal work, is to say when you have individuals who are both competent, you give the when there's a tie, so to speak, the disadvantaged person, you recognize that that person has had to do more to get there, and so the tiebreaker is that person.
Okay.
I absolutely have no hesitation in saying that both are qualified. But in a situation like that, the individual who you don't see in the tapestry of the workplace, you want that person to go there because you will cause others around to see perhaps there's hope. Perhaps I could be there as well. Most of the business places serve a variety of customers, not just the majority or dominant groups in a society. And so it's a better business outcome. And then, innovation, the more different the threads, usually the better the innovative outcome and process. So it's a challenge, but it results in a better outcome immediately and in the longer term. So I don't think it's about not giving people opportunities. It's about trying to ensure that individuals who have never been given a chance to even have an opportunity are considered, and only if qualified are they then given the opportunity. I think I would do a disservice to someone who isn't qualified, but who fits some profile. It would be a disservice to put them in the role. I'd never do that. But if they merit the opportunity, I want to remove the barrier.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think I will bring that answer to the classroom. And you mentioned that you have broken so many glass ceiling in a sense. And having achieved that, how do you perceive yourself today, and what position do you want to actually impart to other people? What do you want people to actually understand by your achievement, and how do you want them to actually interact with the fact that we now have a Black female dean at McGill Desautels?
It's a great question. For me, first of all, I want to have a legacy. Before we get to that, I would say every day I want to give people hope. I want to break the stereotype. I want them to look at Dean Chan and to say, could that be me?
Yeah.
Is it possible for a leader to be racialized, to be Black? Is it possible for a leader to be a woman? Now, McGill is very, very progressive when it comes to women leaders. Almost all of the deans right now are women.
Oh, wow.
We have almost 10 women deans. It's a lot of women deans. That's incredible. But when it comes to racialized deans, that's another story. And I am, to my knowledge, McGill's first Black dean. I want people to think differently about leadership and what it looks like. In terms of my legacy, though, it's not just inspiration, it's impact. So yes, the to inspire the young person looking at me, but also, though, to create opportunities for everyone. I'm not only about creating opportunities for some, but for everyone, to make sure, though, that those, as I said earlier, who haven't historically, been given opportunities, do have those as well. And so at McGill Desautels, we have been looking at who has access to the school, to the faculty, looking at admissions, looking at scholarships, looking at the ability to stay in the program, looking at the outcomes of our graduates and where they're placed, and the networks that they have access to while at McGill, and also after McGill. We've been looking at their awareness. Are we graduating students who are aware of ethical issues and of equity issues? So looking at the curriculum, our faculty are doing research on EDI, on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and ethics. We have thought leadership in some areas. So Delve, our area where it's almost a podcast, but we publish our findings and make them accessible to practitioners through McGill Dev. We're trying to ensure that there are pieces on ethics and on equity. We're trying to transform. So for me, impact is why I'm here. I'm here for a season. Deans come and go. At most, we have 2 terms generally, and at McGill, that definitely will be the case for me. So I have a window of time to use my life, to use who I am, to unlock opportunities, and to ensure that our graduates are individuals who will go out and change the world for good.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. I need some time to actually digest what you said, because I'm so inspired by it, and to know that you are so actively engaged in promoting and giving access to different people. I know that, for example, there is a program at Desautels which actually try to ease access for a certain type of community. Can you speak into that a little bit more?
I can indeed. So we were planning to launch, actually this September, a class that would have been different, that would have involved qualification using both quantitative and qualitative criteria. So McGill Desautels has the highest entering average of any business school in Canada. 1 year, I think it was a couple of years ago, I think it was, you had to have over 97%, something along those lines to get into this faculty, which is great in the sense that we have very, very, very intelligent students, but which is not great from an inclusion perspective, because if you are disadvantaged, sometimes you're working 2-3 jobs. You might be caring for someone while you also are studying. You may not have access to all kinds of tutoring. And so that, when it's that tight and you have to have 97 and above, you may have a richer and a different population. So we got permission and we got approvals all the way up through the university to have this pilot where we would, just for 15 students, not a large population. We have
15
in the BCom
over 600?
625 was the average sort of class size, a cohort. We were just going to add 15 students who would be qualified based on criteria that involved things like their excellence in extracurricular activities and sports, which we don't consider now. Their leadership, have they gone out and started a company at age 12, but also overcoming barriers. Did they single-handedly raise 4 siblings? It would allow for the consideration of criteria within 1%. So suppose it was 97%, we would look at the applicants that did not get 97 but were within just 1%-ish of that So very highly qualified applicants, and then look at their qualitative statements and choose 15. We would not, back to the comment about meritocracy and can you still excel and get opportunities when you are the majority? Yes. We weren't taking a single spot away. 625 would come in as before, but these 15 would be on top of. As it turns out, because of the recent changes that have occurred at McGill because of the Quebec government statements and tuition changes, and everything was thrown into flux for a while. That was paused, so we did not do that this year, but we're actively looking at it again for a future year, and I hope it will be next year.
Oh, perfect. I definitely hope, and I'm sure it will be not only impactful but also valuable, because we might trigger some virtuous cycle of people looking up at McGill and say it's possible even for me, and I might get there somewhat.
Yes.
Coming back to entrepreneurship a little bit, because you have been so much involved in those type of entrepreneurial ecosystem, what would be your advice to any Black entrepreneur in today's environment? You mentioned technology in a while, you mentioned the ecosystemic barrier that they may face. How can a Black or a minority or racialized entrepreneur today can actually navigate its way to build a profitable venture?
Okay, a great question. It's very, very important to remember that network principle. The Black entrepreneur potentially faces fewer advantages than someone else might. If you come from a wealthy family, if you come from a place of power and position, you often know who to call, how to get doors opened. You might have even the financial resilience to survive a year or two where you're in the deficit. Unfortunately, in terms of profits, it's a negative balance. If you're coming in and you say you're an immigrant, potentially, you're racialized, you don't know who to call, you have no family, it's a harder start. So it's more important than to be part of what we have been discussing here, an ecosystem. It could be as simple as an incubator. It doesn't even have to be, being part of a really broad regional ecosystem. You can just simply sign up to be part of an incubator. And many universities have incubators. McGill has its own innovation ecosystem. Most cities, like Montreal, has incubators. I would strongly, strongly, strongly encourage a Black entrepreneur to be part of an incubator to begin with, just because you have that sort of like a cocoon. It's kind of like you have a protection, you have a community who are well networked. Even if you are not yourself, you'll be part of a much better networked system. There are Black entrepreneurship networks, and if you are a Black entrepreneur and your community has one locally, so I know, for instance, in Montreal, a number of Black entrepreneurs meet. It's wonderful if you can get connected. You may not be invited, but if you can, that's a good thing. Similarly, with technology, you can be a part of a Black entrepreneurship community virtually. So I personally am involved in communities that I can only access virtually because they're not locally available to me. But I meet, for instance, in my case, with women deans. I meet with racialized leaders in other contexts. Even if it's not available locally, technology allows you to be part of communities that can share ideas and to help advance you. So one big word of advice is do not do this on your own. And then really ensure that you have access to coaches, to mentors, to those who can provide you with some financing
Okay.
It's critical to be able to translate ideas into products. You need revenues. You need funding even before your revenues occur.
Yeah.
So ensuring that you create for yourself a foundation for success and not underestimating the challenge. Often we jump in and think, I have a bright idea, it's going to sell.
Not true.
There
Not
are a
necessarily.
million bright ideas.
Yeah.
So get yourself a community that is supportive, both a community that might care about you, say if you're a Black entrepreneur, but also a community that might just care about entrepreneurs.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Maybe a last question. Having worked so hard all throughout your career and achieving a lot, is there anything you are still looking up to? And maybe do you have plans for retirement? Maybe it's too early for that.
Too early for the retirement, but
Okay.
in terms of what I am looking up to, I think that I would like to continue to transform the lives of others. I look at my own life and, if I go all the way back to high school, my high school in Jamaica, the motto was ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulty.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's been a motto of my life. But I would like to be a source of encouragement to others that regardless of the setback, you can indeed excel. And for me, success is about excellence and equity. It's if we are all about inclusion and we're just not performing, that's not of interest to me. And if we are performing at the expense of individuals, that's not of interest to me. It's both. And I would like to leave a legacy of excellence and also a very strong, equitable community where ethics is a high value and where individuals are caring and inclusive. They treat each other well. There's a tension between the excellence and the equity, and I'd like to model how we can achieve both. I believe that I have a bit of work to do, and I'm excited to do that work. There's another Jamaican saying I would put on the table.
Okay.
It says, you're lickle, which is spelled L-I-K-K-L-E, but it means little.
Okay.
But you're talawa. Talawa meaning fierce or strong. And as I lead a business faculty, I would say to the students and to our alumni, take on anything. You may be little, but you can indeed prevail. You can be strong. And as we deal with pandemics, as we deal with even just great challenges, say the environment and floods and fires and destruction, wars, everything that we are coming against, I would like my legacy to be not focusing on the being small or not focusing on the adversity, but focusing on being strong, on being resilient, on being one determined to reach the stars.
Wow. Thank you very much, Yolande. A last personal question for me as a father of two young boys, age 4 and 2. How did you manage to balance the work-life challenges that you had to face throughout your career?
Yes. So it's back to sacrifices. And so as I said, I was very, very fortunate to have a great family, and I'll never underestimate the benefit that gave me. My mother, as I said, focused and stayed at home. And for me, I have these 2 beautiful sons I love dearly. One is married, one is not. They're both very close to me to this day. And I couldn't stay home with my sons. And in some ways struggled because I knew what a difference my mother had made to me. And it was one of the hardest choices, a sacrifice that I had to make to realize the potential that I have, and to do so while not having that be at the expense of my wonderful husband and sons. I was fortunate. My husband's mother for many, many years lived nearby and helped me look after our children. And without her, I don't think it would have been possible readily. So, I mean, today people have nannies, they have extended family, of course, daycares and school. And I did have to use also daycares and school. But for me, it's been day by day ensuring that my children and my husband always know at the end of the day, they mean the world to me. And that I can and will always drop my work if they need me. If I have the time to say one little story.
Yeah,
I remember my son, who's now much taller than I am, and who can literally turn me upside down and shake me. Mom, behave yourself. But I remember when he needed me, and I'd always told him that whatever was going on, if he said he needed me, I would stop. And I remember that I was given literally, it was 15 minutes with the principal of the university I was at last, and I was just trying to communicate. And in that 15-minute period, my son called.
Oh, wow.
And I looked down and I was tempted not to answer. And then I remembered my promise to him, and I just asked to be excused for 30 seconds. And I said, can this wait? I'm with the principal. And he said, it cannot wait.
Oh, wow.
So I turned to the principal and said, I'm so sorry, but
I have to leave.
my son needs me.
Oh, wow.
And I stepped out, and 10 minutes later, I was free, and I asked the principal's secretary if he was willing and able to still see me, and he graciously did. But for me, how have I balanced my life? First, through my values, so I have a strong faith, very strong faith. Through ethics, I never want to do anything that I'm ashamed of.
Okay.
So my life has to be transparent. Through modeling that, because my parents modeled that for me, so I modeled that for my family. Through being available to them at key points. There have been many points when I would have loved to have been available, not available. But at those key points, which can be life-changing, to be available. And then to always teach them by example more than my words. That being their best selves is all that I need, all that I want, and that is more than anyone can even really ask them to be, and that their parents are pleased and proud, so they know that they are supported, they know that they're appreciated, and I try to point the way forward, even as I try to be available to them and to this community here at McGill Desautels.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Yolande, and for this particular answer that I will actually make sure to take the best out of it and be as balanced as you were, and be able to give the time to my boys to actually grow up and be the best self. Yeah. Thank you very much once again for having us in your office today and for having this conversation with us this morning.
It's been my great honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.